Hello and welcome to another lesson of Python programming for beginners. In this lesson we will see we will learn about the list in Python. So how we can use list in Python. So what exactly list, we will see that first. Okay, so let me share a few things with you. So I have already written few little theory for you guys. So what exactly the list is? The list is a data structure in Python that is mutable or changeable. We can say that means we can change the elements of list, and we can add, remove elements, we can append, okay, we can insert elements. So we will see all those things. And the list is ordered sequence of elements. So that means there is an order, so that you can that means you can handle or you can access the elements of this list with the help of index numbers and all. That also means you can clone or we can create the copy of the list as well. Okay, so lists are just dynamic sized arrays, very similar to vector in C++, or we use array list and all in Java, so collection classes in Java. So it's like that. Okay, so lists need not to be homogeneous always, which makes it most powerful tool in Python, and that's why you will see it being used often, or most of the time people use list, okay, whenever they want to handle some data and all. Okay, so this means single list may contain data types like integer, string, as well as objects. In other words, we can say that the list can contain different types of elements, and that's a great thing we have. So let's define the list. So how we can define list? So let me call it list 1. I'll just call it list 1, and we can define the list using square brackets. Okay, in this now we can just add a few, let's say let me say something like this. So I'll create a simple list with, let's say, alphabets like this, and let's say D, then let's say let me add one more. Okay, so A B C D E like that. So we have added some 5 elements now. Let's see how we can deal with the other things. Okay, so this is how we have just created a list. Let's see how we can print the list. If I want to print just print the list, okay, so what I can do it. So basically it's very simple. So to print the list, again we will use the print statement here, and we will simply pass the list to it. Okay, so that's how we can simply just print the list. So let's try and run this program first so that we can see the output. So let's run that. Let's call it Python, and we'll say list demo.py. okay, so as we can see, it's printing in the square brackets as we have created it. Okay, as we have created it, similarly it has printed it. Okay, so list is printed. So let's check how we can create or how we can access the elements. Okay, so if I say if I want to access the elements, okay, so let's see how we can access the elements of, let's say, list. Okay, so elements of a particular list or a particular element of the list. Okay, so if I want to access the particular element of a list, what I can do is I can simply say list and list 1 and square bracket. I need to pass the index number. So if I pass the index number 3, it will print element which is on index number 3. So again, keep that in mind. Index numbers are always similar to other languages like C, C++, Java. Okay, indexing always starts with 0. So if I say if I'm passing 3, so the indexing starts with 0. So that means 0 is A, 1 is B, and C is 2, and D is 3. Okay, so we should get 3. So let's see the output again. If we get, let's say, Python, and if I say list demo.py, see, we are getting D. Okay, so that's how I hope you have understood that. Okay, so let's move ahead with the next stuff. So how we can find the total number of, let's say, elements. Okay, so if I say, if I want to check the total number of the elements in a list. Okay, so if I want to print the total number of elements in the list, again what I have to do is I'll use a length function here. I'll use a length function here, and I'll pass the list to it. Okay, so let's say list 1. Okay, so it will print the total number of that. So let me run that program again. Now we can see total number of the element is 5. Okay, so as we can see that output as well. Then moving ahead, if I want to let's say if I just want to check any element, okay, or if I want to replace any element, okay. So fine, now we already have few elements here, and if I want to replace particular element, how I can do that? Okay, so let's say if I want to replace an element from list, okay, so what we can do here is, what I'll do is I'll say list1 square brackets, I'll pass the index number which I want to replace. Let's say if I want to replace 3 only, so instead of, let's say, D, okay, I want something else. Let's say instead of D I want F, okay. So let me write it capital, yeah. So let's say instead of means on place of 3, index number 3, okay, so there is D now, instead of that I want to have F, okay. So make sure this is a simple syntax. So we will say, okay, list1 of 3, okay, equals F. And now if I print the list, let's say if I print the list, let's say list 1, okay, and if I try to print that list, let's see what we get. So we are getting F, okay. So as you can see that initially when it was the list, initially A, B, C, D, E, then we have printed, let's say, the element 3, then the total length of that list is 5, and after replacing, okay, as you can see here, D is replaced with F, okay. So that is how we can see it works. That's how it works. So let's say if I want to find the index number, okay, of an element, let's say you know the element but you don't know the index number of that, okay. So how you will find the index number of that particular element, okay. So for an example, I'll say x equals to, let's say, list1, okay. So I'll say list1 dot, I'll use a function called index, okay. And in index, if I'll pass the element, let's say if I pass C, okay, and if I want to print, let's say, X, okay, so this will give me the index number from that particular element, of that particular element. So if I run this code again, in the end, if you can see, I'm getting 2, that means the C is on 2. So as we know, 0, 1 and 2, okay, as the index always starts with 0, we are getting 2, okay. So that's how we can simply check, okay. Then if I want to add any particular element, okay, if I want to add a particular element in the list, how I'll be able to add, basically instead of add, I'll say if I want to append any element, okay, sorry, if I want to append any particular element, okay, so how will I do it? Append and let's say element, okay. So when we say append, it's always in last, okay. So append an element in the list, so it will be always in the added in the end, okay. So if I want to add a particular element in the list, how I can do that, okay. So that's again very simple. I'll use list1 first, so list1 that, and then append, okay. So in append now I'll add the element. So if I say, let's say G, okay, if I say G, so I'll just see it like this, and I'll just say, let's say, print, and let's print that list again, okay. So list1, okay. And now if I run this program, okay, let me run this program again. So as you can see that the G is added in the end, okay. So A, B, C, F, E, G, okay. So D was replaced with F, and then G is there, okay. So the G is added in the end, okay. But if I want to add a particular element, okay, on a particular location, that means I'll say if I want to insert an element on specific, I'll say, okay, specific index number, okay. So insert an element on a specific index number. So if I want to do something like that, again what I'll use is list1 dot, this time I'll use a function called insert, okay. This time I'll use a function called insert, okay. So in insert we have to pass basically two things. First is index number, and second is the object or the element, you can say. So let's say on first, or let's say on 2, I'll say, so basically on 2 now we have C, okay. So instead of C I want to add something else, okay. So on 2 I'll add, let's say, H. Instead of 2 I want to add H, okay. So this is how I'll just simply do that. And if I say print and again list1, okay, so let's print that list1, and let's run that program again so that we can see it. So now we can see that h is there, so whole list is shifted one place. Okay, so c was on 2, now c is on 3. Okay, and h is there on 2. Okay, so this is how every element is shifted one place. Okay, and that particular element is added on the given index number. Okay, so that's how we can just use that. Then if I want to loop that list, if I want to loop it, how I can loop it? Okay, so let's say loop with the list. Okay, so if I want to loop it, it's again simple. I'll use for x list 1. I'll open the loop using the colon. Okay, we'll go through the loops again in detail. I'm just considering and giving you an example right now, so no need to worry, but just keep one thing in mind. Okay, this x is a temporary variable, and this x will, or the loop will iterate for every element of list 1. Okay, so it's not like C++ or Java wherein we used to write. Okay, so let me write it here in comments. So in Java, C++ and Java, what we used to generally do is we used to generally write it like this. Let's say I or in C++ we define it outside. I'm just taking an example. Okay, so generally in Java we write it like this. So I equals to 0, then we use the semicolon, then we say condition, let's say I less than 10, whatever elements, just considering, and then we say I plus plus. Okay, so we don't need to write all those things here in Python. We just need to use the for each. This is an example of for each, which if you have learned Java. So if you have learned Java, or if you know Java, okay, you might have gone through for each in Java. Okay, so it's very similar to that, and here again we create this temporary variable called x, and then we use that, so it will iterate for every element or each and every element of the list. Okay, and in the end we just have to write it like this. Let's say we'll print that temporary variable, so print x. Okay, so here in Python you just need to maintain this particular space. Okay, so if you want to add some more elements to this, let's say if I say print let's say if I just print anything else, if for an example I'll just print z here, nothing else. Okay, so every time it will print the z here, and if I try to write, if I write something here, okay, this will be out of the for. Okay, so if I maintain this space, if I maintain this space here, this is basically for. Okay, so in Python we don't use curly brackets for scope, we just need to use those spaces, that is indentation. So we just need to manage that, otherwise we don't need to worry about anything else. Okay, so just an example, so I'll just remove this, we don't want to okay, so let's try. Okay, and if I run that program again, now you can see A, B, H, C, F, E, G. Okay, all the elements are printed, or every element is printed on the next line. Okay, so that's again there, so we don't need to even use the slash n. It is applied by default, it is applied by default, so we don't need to even apply the slash n here. Okay, that's again a good thing in Python. Then if you want to use some decision making statements like if else with Python with the list, that again you can check. Okay, so for an example we will just check if if the element exists or not. Okay, so just for simple check. Okay, so if let's say I'll say again we don't need to use the brackets here, we will use it like this. Let's say if a, okay, so in list 1, okay, and I will again open the scope using the colon, and I'll write it like this. So let's say I'll say print, okay, and just a small message, let's say yes, a is present. Okay, so just a simple statement we have used. Okay, so just for an example we have taken a simple statement. Now if I run that program, okay, in the end if you can see here, yes, a is present, yes, a is present. Okay, so that's how again we can get the simple message here. Okay, and all the things are there. So these are the things, or this is how basically we use list. Okay, this is how basically we use list, and that's what I was saying, that okay, you can add any kind of elements and anything like that. Okay, so that's the thing we use list. So see you in the next lesson.